So yes, recording in progress. And right now, I would like to share with you the screen. If there is anything that you don't see, then just let me know. I am putting my presentation or the slides in presentation mode. If anything goes wrong, just let me know and I will correct it. Yes, feel free. See, there are some more people coming. There are not too many participants today because many of us are getting ready for the conference. The IATEFL annual conference begins on Friday, this Friday. And so everybody is very busy. And that's why I have to manage on my own, which I don't mind, but with a little help from all the participants, my colleague teachers, everything will be perfect, I'm sure. So the title of my today's review, presentation, reflection is Keep Teaching, Keep Learning. And I am going to talk about some pillars of successful teaching, the way I see them myself. And then the final part of the title is a quotation. It's not what I said, but it is something that I believe in. And at the end of the presentation, I will show you who said it, unless you know it already. Does anybody know who said it? Nobody. Okay. So I see in the chat box, there is greetings to everybody from Helen, greetings to you, Helen, greetings to everybody. Please feel free to communicate with each other in the chat box. You know, I don't have to control everything. Yes, I feel very well when the other participants of any session that I conduct communicate between themselves, yes, because then they create positive network and they can share whatever they wish to share. Okay, so as you see, I work at Krakow University of Economics, but I've also been active with IATEFL Poland for I think about 15 years already. First as a secretary, then a review committee member, and right now I have found the role of course, being the Krakow region coordinator. I have decided during the pandemic to offer webinars, yes, and then we build on these webinars, and right now we offer 4 webinars a month on the average, which those of you who are participating in these webinars definitely know. Okay, so let's move on. C doesn't want to go, right? Okay, only this way. Okay, so this is, do you see the headline at the top of the slide? Say yes or no. Okay, let me see. Yes, you see the headline. Okay, very well. So I don't have to change it into non-presentation mode. So this is the first slide. Oops, jumped back to the first one. This is the first slide in which I look back at COVID time. I'm sure everyone remembers how it all began. I remember the 11th of March was the last day of teaching at my university. However, theoretically, my students shouldn't have come to that lesson. But although there were rector's hours since, say, 5 p.m., they came to the lesson which started 4:30. And you know what we did? We arranged how we would be working from that moment onwards. And I was so grateful to them for coming and for planning, yes, because once we planned, we knew how to work. But it was a very, very difficult moment. And this image really shows us how we all felt at that time. but suffering is just should be the starting point for creating something new. So my first presentation after COVID began, the one that I presented at Language and Culture Association conference, was about redefining educational process at the time of coronavirus pandemic. So I thought that if I didn't act, then I wouldn't be able to control the situation in the classroom and to make my students feel better. Yes, so that was the first one. And then when the virtual semester started, in fact, I told my students that at the end of the semester, I would give them some kind of survey just to see how well they functioned in this totally new teaching environment, or learning environment. And I collected data, and at the end of the semester, I prepared this presentation, whether this first virtual semester, but there were more than one, we all know about it, whether this first semester was the promised land or a nightmare. And the conclusion was that we were somewhere in between, yes, that if we kept working and kept analyzing the needs of our students in this new situation, then we had a chance to be successful and to make our students want to continue learning. Okay, and the third one was my presentation at BC conference. That was the online conference, the sign of the time, keep teaching no matter what. And there I spoke about some pillars, so I already knew how I managed to survive those difficult times. And I presented some pillars of successful teaching of business English and business communication, because that's what I teach in online, hybrid, or traditional classroom. And in this presentation, I would like to share with you this idea that I really believe in. That successful teaching is possible in all kinds of teaching environments, traditional, online, hybrid classroom. The key to success is a well-created, well-conceived of system of teaching. So we have to think ahead, yes, even when we enter the classroom, we should already have the vision of how we see our teaching learning process, and share this vision with our students, and then see how it refers to their expectations. And of course, modify the vision, because nothing is perfect, yes? Ongoing needs analysis is of key importance. Okay, let's go to the next one. So here I am sharing with you the system of teaching. This is an example taken from some of the web resources, and this refers to teaching biology, as you will see in the final column. Yes, but what is good here, what I really like about this very simple diagram, is that we have some inputs. So what we need to know, we sit down, take a piece of paper, and then we think, what do I need to know before I start teaching my students? Yes, and as you can see here, there is a checklist, but it's not the only option of such a checklist. In the case of different courses, the elements of this checklist for inputs may vary very significantly. Okay, let me see. Yes, somebody joined us. So as you see here, in this case, learner characteristics, teacher characteristics, classroom environment, and it says here, boys only, girls only, co-educational. In my case, for example, classroom environment is whether I'm going to teach in a room where I can create or rearrange the elements of space. So rearrange the chairs for teamwork, for some kind of circle of communication, or I will be teaching in a lecture room where nothing like this is possible, but a lecture room gives us some other options. So when we look at it from the positive perspective, we can discover some options which are offered by various teaching environments. And then the last point here is teaching and learning resources and facilities. So what do I have? And that is something that I'm sure each of us works on. We have different files that I am going to talk about. I'm going to share how I prepare my files. And of course, I would be more than happy if you wanted to share your ideas concerning the files, the way you create them, the way you build the situation in the classroom. So we have all the inputs. Yes, we have thought ahead of the whole process. We have prepared a set of inputs. We enter the classroom. Yes, and we look at our students, create positive atmosphere, hopefully, and then we start talking to them, trying to discover whether our assumptions made at the stage of preparing inputs were right. Yes, so we talk to students, we try to open them up. You know, in Poland, and this is something that I would like to share with you, there is a very interesting phenomenon, namely, students who come from secondary school to university are in a way limited, yes, because they have been expected so far to prepare some products that fit within certain framework. And when they enter the university, they keep asking me at bachelor level, because at MA level, that doesn't happen anymore, because they already know. At bachelor level, they keep asking me, can I complete this task this way or that way? Yes, can I do this or that? And I always try to open them up, telling them that the more they differ between each other in terms of content presented, but also in terms of forms, and I'm going to share with you some of the forms that I offer to my students, the more they will be able to learn in this educational process. And the output should be success of our students. It's not always true. If, however, there are some problems, we are problem solvers, we are facilitators, and students are at the center of this teaching and learning process. And what I would like to stress at this point is that students learn, but we learn from them as well. And that's why I really love being a teacher. Okay, so these are some of the elements of the system that I use. So I begin and continue. This is very, very important with needs analysis. So what do they need? I try to create positive teaching learning environment. I try to reinforce students' motivation, and I try to assess them all the time. It's ongoing assessment, not necessarily giving them grades, but evaluating them as they continue learning. And I provide them with feedback. Usually when my students present something, prepare something, I don't control them, I don't correct their mistakes immediately, but after they have presented something, I give them feedback, telling them about some of their strengths, that's this positive feedback, and areas of improvement. So this is this is my method of providing my students with sense of achievement. And of course, we communicate all the time. When COVID struck, it was a bit more difficult, but not impossible, because, you know, there are the way my classes were arranged was online classes at that time. There was a 15-minute break between some of the classes. So you can, the first option, a student can stay in the room and talk to the teacher. A student can send an email. A student can communicate with the use of communicator on Teams. Now we are using, at my university, we are using Teams, but we began by using Zoom, yes? So that was the first system that we used. Both systems give us the whole range of options and make it possible to keep in touch with our students. So my observation is that if we want to communicate with our students, we will communicate with them because, you know, we have Moodle at my university as well. So some students who want to share their reflections with other students will write on Moodle. Some students who would like to write privately to the teacher will send an email. So there is this range, or stay in the room at the end of the class or at the end of the lesson. They must feel that they are at the center of the whole process. So they are inspired by the teacher, but teacher is inspired by the students as well. Yes, so this feedback goes in both directions and in many different forms. Okay, so in this approach, a teacher should pay very close attention to the implementation of good practices. And I'm going to talk about some of the practices that I use in our classroom, I should have said, such as transparency, clearly specified rules, and clearly specified requirements. So everything is specified in, as I name it, lesson number 1. I don't use the version class, I use the old-fashioned version of lesson. This is our lesson. Okay, so here we have an example of learning needs analysis. Yes, so that is not the type of learning needs analysis that I use. There is an example taken from the internet, yes, where we establish the context, assess the gaps, so what do they need to learn, and then come up with a solution. Very simple system. Now, I would like to share with you the actual slide from one of my lessons, in which I asked my students to present their opinions. Of course, this is anonymous, present their opinions and suggestions concerning the course. Yes, and then I either group their opinions myself when I see that the students are very busy. So that is the first option. A teacher can concentrate on what students said, let's say at the end of the semester or in the middle of the semester, and then talks about it with the students, reaching some kind of conclusions. This comes in a moment. But the method that I insist on using is that one student or two students from this particular group take all the results, group, because one of the business writing tasks for my students that they have to complete is writing a report. Yes, and this is in fact writing a report. Yes, so analyzing information and then drawing conclusions from this information. And so students said, I hope that in the next semester we are going to focus more closely on the matters we have already discussed. Yes, so they wish to continue, but in more detail. They wish to have more workshops, some of them want more written tasks, some more classes concerning business topics like management, public relations, and introduction to international relations courses. This can be done in kindergarten. Yes, when children are interested in some areas that haven't been discussed. So instead of talking about flowers and a meadow or covered with flowers, you can talk with them about some of the newest games, yes, that they are using. There always has to be this interest on the side of the learner that is relevant, however, to the content that they are expected to acquire during the course. So it can be done at any level. Here are the opinions, and here are the conclusions and goals for the next semester. So in the second semester of the course, students should be given a chance to learn, review the principles of communication, gain more practical skills, both oral and written, stress on oral skills, read and discuss some new publications referring to the areas of business communication, the ones that they are interested in. And I want you to notice that in brackets, I wrote here self-access. So self-access, that is a phrase that was used in one of the universities where I also taught business communication. That was self-study, in other words. Yes, so when they are interested in some areas that are relevant to what I teach them, like in kindergarten, children might be interested in painting, yes, painting a picture. Yes, how do I paint a picture? And then they can talk about it. I use this color, that color, and so on. But they prepare it themselves, and then they present the final product to their colleagues. This way, the time spent on the preparation is quite extended, yes? But the time spent at presentation is limited because there are time limits for presentations. So this way, they can inspire one another, yes? And then their colleagues can say that I have been inspired. Oh, this is very interesting. I've never thought about this topic, but right now, I think I will start analyzing this topic as well. I do it in such a way that I provide my students with some of articles. Wikipedia has some articles about different ideas referring to workplace and getting a new job, going to a job interview, and so on. And I put them together in a file that is called extra topics. Yes, so if you teach in kindergarten, you can also create such a file of extra topics that your children, your learners can have a look at, yes, with a lot of pictures, yes, because this is a different type of learning. Although at university level, visual teaching and visual learning is also of key importance, and I strongly believe in the power of visual communication, especially in contemporary world of business or contemporary professional world. And then they click through the files and see if anything is interesting for them. Yes, so that is the idea of self-access or self-study, to broaden the scope, so that in every course there is this basic element that is the starting point, the content and the forms that they have to acquire according to the syllabus. And then there is this added element, my reflection on the syllabus and my own ideas referring to this particular subject. Yes, so we have three segments, basically the syllabus, elaborating on the syllabus, and then totally free subjects, just to show who you are, what you are interested in, and so on. And that is when you get ready for it, during, I receive these messages and I put them immediately in one file. And then the file is created at the beginning of the semester. You provide your students with it and you say to them, okay, have a look at it. Maybe something is interesting for you. Okay, let's move on. Now I would like to share a reflection with you about what can happen with needs analysis. That is my own story. When I started teaching business communication, I learned that I would be teaching students who are at C1 level. And so I assumed that in this course, I don't have to teach them any specific vocabulary, especially business vocabulary. Yes, because they will already kind of develop this vocabulary while analyzing variety of topics that we will be concentrating on. And I realized that was the wrong assumption. So my own story goes as follows. I had to redesign the whole course of business communication after a month. We added one segment. So I assumed that the course would have 3 segments. I will show you in a moment because I show these segments in lesson 1. I thought that my course would have 3 segments: business communication, business skills written, and business skills oral. But one segment was missing, and that was business vocabulary, the business topics to talk about. And so I had to add this element to the course. So, you know, we all, no matter how old we are, how long we teach or have been teaching, we all have to be ready for all kinds of surprises. And rather than treating them as shocking situations, we should treat them as challenges. So that is the power of positive thinking. Once I discovered the power of positive thinking, then I was able to manage all kinds of difficult situations. And I reflect on this own story of mine. I reflected on this own story of mine in a presentation and later on an article, the value of positive feedback and ongoing needs analysis in the process of formative assessment, because I believe in the power of formative assessment. So when we assess our students, we don't only assess what they can produce at the end of the semester or at the end of the course, but we form them. That's where the name formative assessment came from. We form them by assessing them very, very all the time. Yes. So whenever they do something, we should react to what they do. My other story was that I once had a student who was an excellent student. She really could do everything perfectly well. So every single task that she prepared was prepared so well that I never commented on her tasks. What I said, you are perfect again. Yes. And she was, you know, and then since I communicate with my students and I encourage them to come up to me whenever they don't feel very well, to make sure that it doesn't grow and then impedes the communication between them and me. And she came up to me and she said, you don't give me any feedback. Why was I perfect? What was good? What are the elements that build my task? Yes, and this is the way I learned that every single student needs to be given very, very well arranged, careful, ongoing feedback about their success. And then we form them as professionals, as curious people, if it's in kindergarten, but you learn professionalism in kindergarten already. Yes, so that's where you start. You build these children just to be curious, to be inquisitive, to be searching for new information. So that's where I expressed my opinion about the value of positive feedback. And it is available on ResearchGate with some of my other articles. Okay, so during the first lesson, when I meet with my students, we start by talking about how the whole course will look. And at my level, so that is at university level, we call it code of ethics, code of practice, code of ethics, code of behavior. And in kindergarten, you might as well call it rules, yes? So what will be the rules? How are we going to behave during this course? What will be allowed? What will not be allowed? What are your ideas about how we are going to learn? And as you can see here, we have an example of code of ethics. You know, when you prepare code of any kind of regulations with your students, it's always good to give them checklists. So here you have an example of a checklist, yes? And I took it from templates from helpfulprofessor.com. Yes, so it is for any level, yes? And you can have such templates, and then you think, okay, are we going to talk about vision and mission? Okay, let's talk about our vision and mission. Core values, compliance with regulations, well, that doesn't concern us in our kindergarten, yes? Conflict of interest, maybe we can skip it, yes? And this way, having this checklist, it is much easier to create your own checklist for what is going to be referred to in our code of ethics during this particular course. So this is just an example, and feel free to have a look at those templates if you want to use them yourselves. And here is an example of code of, because I do it with my students, I do it in such a way that as it was in the case of needs analysis or review of what was good, what was wrong during a given semester, I do this, that students prepare it, yes? I do the same in this case because I want them to learn different forms of business communication. Like, for example, code of practice is a very good example of list, yes? So we practice list. So code of good practice of our course. This is the code that was prepared by one of my students. This is his vision. And that was for traditional lessons. To learn something from classes, attendance shall be taken into consideration. No good can come from skipping classes. Always be prepared for classes. During all classes, have your books with you, a notebook for possible notes and a pen. If you had homework to do, bring it to the next class. A polite and respectful student is always on time for classes. That is not always the case, but we have found a solution to this problem. Also, they enter quietly, and then at the end of the lesson, we have a little discussion what happened. Yes, so that they don't disturb the flow of the lesson. And it works perfectly well. Leaving the room during classes is possible only in urgent situations. Don't disturb the lecturer by using your phone, computer. No one likes to be interrupted. I really like this point, yes, because this is that was at the beginning of the whole course, and the student himself knew that it may not be good for the teacher. Raise your hand if you have something to say. Yes, so this is a very nice checklist or code of good practice created by one of my students. When we started learning online, then we had to adapt to a new situation. So we were in that virtual room. Yes, so then we created another code of practice. What I would like you to notice is that I don't limit my students in terms of what form to use while preparing their tasks. Yes, so this one was in the form of a list, and this one is in the form of, it's also a list, but in the form of in the graphically designed, so that it is a diagram. Yes, very simple code of practice during for business communication lessons during coronavirus pandemic. Mute your microphone when you are not using it. It will be easier for the rest to focus on the class. Don't interrupt the speaker. Wait for your turn. Be willing to discuss the relevant topics. It's good to share ideas. And then the author, I also teach it to my students, that it is once they have prepared something that was on their mind, and they use their own knowledge, then this is their intellectual property. And then so I teach them to put the signature and the date, yes, so that we know when it was created. And it's a very good method. In kindergarten, you can ask children to draw, yes, their signature. What will be your signature, or what will be the image that you are going to put on every single picture that you are going to prepare for English lessons in kindergarten, to talk about them later on. Yes, so the variety of options are possible here. So code of practice online. So what is important here is that by asking students to own what is happening in the classroom, so I use this phrase that they are co-owners of whatever is happening. It's not the teacher in front of them and they are some kind in some way limited by the teacher or controlled by the teacher, but we are the creators of this particular classroom. So creating a positive classroom experience, yes, respect, ongoing communication, so discussing expectations, setting clear objectives, very important. I will show you some of the examples in a moment. Defining the classroom etiquette, so there is this code of practice, encouraging open dialogue, and many more. What I'm showing to you right now is something that I took from the internet, and this is just an example of what we can do in the classroom. Okay, here I am providing you with the definition of positive environment that was presented by Anand Abd-e-Rahman, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, sorry if I'm mispronouncing, at BSIC conference that I participated in. So a positive environment is one in which students feel a sense of belonging, trust others, feel encouraged to tackle challenges, take risks, and ask questions. So nothing, in other words, as long as they continue concentrating on their content and learning with the use of different forms, nothing is prohibited, yes, unless they start offending somebody, but there is another story. Right? And these are positive thoughts, positive results. Yes, so that was the talk at IATEFL BC. And Anand is an experienced teacher and instructor. Yes, so a person who is certified in business English and the postgraduate diplomas and methodology. So he knows what he's talking about. So let's move on to my checklist, which, you know, as it is the case of all checklists that I prepare, it's never finished. Yes, so this one is also not finished. There is even one mistake here, I see, apologies. Clearly defined and adhered to rules. So there is code of practice, there are requirements, respecting everyone in all situations, grading criteria and the process are transparent. We encourage our students to speak up and express their negative opinions as well, which is not easy. And that's why here I would like to stop for a moment. That's why when I ask my students to evaluate some semester, I ask them to put all of their comments on some kind of discussion forum that I don't have access to. And then I ask one person to collect all of these opinions and comment on them. Yes, so the person comments on the opinions of their colleagues. I don't know who said what, and this way we can overcome all kinds of negative situations easier. Yes, easier, because 100% success is never possible. So encouraging students to express their opinions. Ongoing positive communication, student-centered approach, respecting other students' success. That is also very important. Yes, knowing, you know, when I present feedback to my students, they differ. So, you know, some criteria are fulfilled by one person, some other criteria by another person. How are we going to compare them? Yes, so sometimes there are situations when my students come up to me and say, I did it this way, he did it that way. Why was he scored higher than me? And then we discuss it, yes? And I tell them my way of thinking. Feedback is detailed usually, but there are cases when this feedback is not detailed enough. And then we discuss it exposed, yes, at the end of the lesson, for example. Okay, positive relations, peer-to-peer, student-to-teacher. I always tell my students, I would like our relations to be positive. If there is something negative on your mind, something you don't like about me or our classes, come up to me and tell me about it as soon as possible before it grows. Because when it grows, then it's too late. Yes, then there is the precipice between the teacher and the student. We shouldn't allow it. So they should, as I said, ongoing communication, ongoing positive communication, eliminating some of the barriers that exist naturally between the teacher and the students. Okay, and of course, anything can be discussed, but in a diplomatic way. Yes, so negotiating with teacher in a diplomatic way, and reinforcing students' motivation and treating everyone as a unique learner. This idea of a unique learner is very, very important for me, because we all know, I quoted here these USPs, yes? So unique selling points or unique selling proposition. This is taken from the world of business. These unique selling points concern what is characteristic for that particular person. How is this person unique? What makes the person different, but in a positive way, from their colleagues? And the idea in our classroom is that they should build on these unique features that other colleagues don't possess. Because in a team, there will be, in a team, not everybody has to be identical. They will be working in teams in future. In a team, not everybody has to be identically equipped with characteristics, we might say. One person will be creating the plan of work. Yes, so we will be responsible for the plan. Yes, the thinking, the head people. Yes, the simplest category of team members. Yes, head people, hands people, and heart people. Yes, of course, the roles are much more numerous and the characteristics too, but just to show you how important it is to be unique, and the fact that I don't have this characteristic of problem solution. I'm not very good at solving problems myself. I need to be guided. It doesn't matter, because there have to be hands people in a team. Yes, head people will think about the ideas, hands people will implement these ideas, and heart people will concentrate on the situations when there is some kind of conflict and will help solving this conflict. So this is the teaching environment, and please notice that there is etc. If you prepare such a list for yourselves, I'm sure it will be completely, it will be different, maybe not completely, but it will be different. And there may be many more ideas because we learn from each other. Okay, so we enter the classroom. Students are offered some kind of icebreakers. They are to draw their vision of the course with the use of mind map. They are to start communicate positively with their colleagues, yes, so that there is no situation, there are no such situations as here, yes, when the woman likes the fact that the man doesn't talk, and the man the opposite, yes. So we see that communication doesn't function somehow, and we have to learn it. Okay, so this is all based on two-way communication model. Yes, so there is a sender and there is a receiver. The sender sends the message using certain channel or certain media. There is some kind of noise or barrier to communication. Noise can be, the physical noise, yes, somebody disturbing you when you communicate. Noise can be the distance between the sender and the receiver, but noise can also be when it's too cold or too hot and you don't feel like staying in this environment. So there may be all kinds of noises. What is important is that we should concentrate on this ongoing process of communication. So when the sender sends the message, the receiver sets feedback, and then we start communication process again and again. When we stop, then it's the end of the learning process, yes, because learning takes place in an actively communicating process. Okay, so how do we work? Every task is evaluated. Yes, when students present a task, we change positions, they come to the front of the classroom and they present their task. I go to the back of the classroom and I am their student. I make notes when they present, and I try to present to them personalized positive feedback, yes, where I specify what they are good at. Yes, and of course, I try to suggest to them ways of working on their performance to improve it. And I try to get from them reflection on progress they've made. Yes, so I have it in my notes, and there is always a possibility of comparing how they performed, let's say, half a year ago. And believe me, it really matters, because there are moments when students kind of feel like giving up, yes? And then you tell them, why? Look, you have made a lot of progress. All you need to do is just to concentrate on this or that. So there is this ongoing evaluation. In every consecutive evaluation, I refer to the progress made. And I try to obtain feedback from my students. Yes, so there is pre-questionnaire stage, brainstorming session, also very nice form to use in the classroom to enumerate fast. Not only nice because everybody can express themselves, but also it's fast. Yes, so the students say, I make notes, or some student makes notes, and they enumerate the areas that they need to be referred to. And then we prepare a survey which is anonymous. I usually use, when I prepare the survey, I usually use forms, very useful tool. So if you feel like using it, this is a very good tool, and the whole group participates, and then the results are presented. In my business communication and English classes, my students learn how to present statistics. Yes, so we have graphic forms, pie charts, bar graphs, and so on. And then one student or two students present the survey, or we do it in a one-by-one way. Yes, so I open up. It's very easy because you don't have to prepare, you even don't have to prepare visuals when you analyze the results of the survey. You go to forms and open up the relevant page, and then student after student, they comment on it, and then there is a follow-up discussion. So we communicate individually and as a group as well. And then post-survey, one student is asked, usually one student or two students are asked to make notes when the discussion takes place, yes? And then they present feedback collected from the survey, and follow-up discussion also may take place. And then they can write in the written form what we are going to do in the next stage of our educational process. We can always use discussion forum. I have told you about it. At e-office hours, students, I have such a topic, students' reflections, suggestions, ideas, referring to semester 2, 2021. For example, here you have individual email communication, where we use the English only version with my students, and peer I communicate with my students, but what is very, very important is that they should communicate between themselves. Yes, so as you can see, peer feedback continuum is round 1, round 2, round 3. It should be open-ended, never stops. It should be specific, refers to the subject matter. Okay. Please, I would like to remind you, this is something that I discovered when I was preparing this presentation for today, that we don't always tell our students explicitly what they should do, what was wrong, what was right to begin with, but sometimes we use implicit feedback. Yes, so we don't say directly what they did wrong, but for example, we ask them to clarify. Yes, please clarify what was on your mind. Yes, and if they repeat this mistake, then we can move on to explicit feedback or not. Yes, so remember that sometimes, and why am I mentioning it here? Because in this presentation, I am concentrating on the power of positive communication. Yes, so sometimes a mixture of implicit and explicit feedback is something that is required when there are too many negative comments that we would have to create if we wanted to tell our students explicitly what they did right and what they did wrong. So very, very important. Explicit, implicit categories, that doesn't matter. The rule is never stop communicating in a positive way. Make it effective. Your words matter. Yes, so here I'm referring to some of the articles that refer to bringing positive language into classroom communication and school communication. Yes, to make it effective. Okay, right. So teachers inspire students and are inspired by them in return. Yes, possible questions to be answered. What do you think about our last meeting? Sorry, what are you especially proud of? Yes, you know, for Polish students, phrasing the question in this, I don't know how it is in other countries, but Polish students have a tendency to be critical about themselves. So what are you especially proud of opens them up, yes, so that they can talk about themselves in a positive way. So this is very important in our classroom. Which teachers' activities were especially useful, interesting, challenging for you? Yes, so we try to be transparent. Yes, and the last thing that I would like to talk about is this transparency. So all scores, all comments, both critical and positive remarks are communicated clearly and openly to all students without any delay. Very difficult because sometimes there is no time. Yes, the lesson is over. Somebody took too much time, but I do my best to give students feedback so that they have done something, you know, and they leave the room and they don't get anything from the teacher in return. That is a bad situation, and I avoid such situations. So here is the power of lesson 1. Yes, In lesson 1, I usually present the syllabus. Yes, so as you can see, for business communication, we have business topics, business communication theory, business skills, written and business skills oral. For every single semester, you have such a graphic form. And what is important here, and I would like to draw your attention to this, is that instead of giving the titles, so that, you know, there is a lot of text here already on this slide, I give the cover of the book, the title slide of the set of slides concerning a course of business communication, so that they can refer it to some of the resources that they possess. Okay, requirements, yes, written requirements, oral requirements. Then we have grading criteria. That's the grading criteria that we use at my university. Then we have this slide. Please have a look at, because this is a checklist for possible forms that can be used in the classroom. Students have a tendency to present. They like to present, yes, something, but they can role play. They can simulate all kinds of situations, not just meetings and negotiations, selling something, buying something, question and answer, interviews, written and oral tasks, practical exercises. They can imagine that they are a lecturer and they are giving a lecture. Very good form, even in kindergarten. They can prepare the text and then discuss it with a group. So readings, discussions, brainstorming sessions, individual, pair or group work, case studies, events, simulating conferences, and other forms. This is the checklist that I give to my students during the first lesson, and I ask them, if they don't like any of these forms, they can use a combination or totally own forms. Okay, so student-centered and participatory approach. Each student is in charge of their own situation, being able to control it all the time. Yes, so that is all is transparent. Their tasks are in electronic files provided because we have this special set of materials on Teams right now, and student controls. They have good practices file, the rules, the templates for various tasks, like the templates for presentation slides, review files, test files, teachers and students versions. Yes, sometimes most commonly students prepare test file. Yes, and then messages and announcements file. Yes, how to write a message, how to write an announcement. So it all has to be prepared at the beginning of the course, or if it's not prepared and students discover that they need something, this form, then we can do it during the course. Yes, remember about the power of USPs and use the best technology mix, the one that you manage to control and enjoy using. Like, I am a bit critical about Moodle, but I love using Teams. Please remember about change, for example, online teaching, which should be treated as an opportunity, not a threat. Yes, and finally, use project-based teaching, learning, project teams, case studies, virtual presentations, meetings, negotiations, and speeches. That's what COVID made possible. And my students learned it very well. And tailoring engagement strategies to online and traditional teaching, and teaching communicative competence, so they communicate since the early moment when they start learning. Okay, here I have some other ideas, some projects and so on, but I am not going to talk about it. Here is another checklist. I am showing you the last but one slide because time is up. So I'm showing you what our goal is. To be able to educate effectively, we need to know what works. So, as Mark Twain said, find what works for you and exploit it. You can, you can find which of these ideas that I have presented to you today work for you, and you can use them. Yes, so this much for today. Thank you all for your attention. And today, exceptionally, let me just, so that I can control the situation, exceptionally, I will provide you with the certificate right now. Yes, so okay, let's put it down. Stop sharing. Right, I'm sharing the okay. So right now, certificate. I am providing you with the certificate, and I would like to ask you if there is anything that you would like to say, so that you are not, I talked a lot, maybe too much. I wouldn't like you to feel that you are dominated by me. You know what? I think that I learn a lot from my colleagues, and that's why I always participate in all kinds of conferences, because after every consecutive conference, I am able to learn something from my colleagues. So so that is the idea. Okay, right, webinar, okay. Certificate, right? Certificate. Okay, I have provided you with a certificate. If you are interested in having any links to IATEFL Poland and so on, go to IATEFL webpage, and there you will find all the information, because today, due to the fact that I have been talking all the time, I was unable to provide you with the relevant links that I usually do provide my participants of consecutive webinars with. I would like the final thing, I am stopping the recording right now.